Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we're going to uncover my main healer choice in the War Within. The day has finally come, and this is by far the most requested question that people ask me on a daily basis. And I know why, because historically speaking, a lot of my main choices are going to be healers that are doing well or currently doing well in all forms of content, because I like to pick a healer that's going to help out my raid, my Mythic Plus group, because I like to push all forms of content depending. For example, I'll push Mythic Plus if I like the dungeons. But initially, at the release of a new patch or a new expansion, raiding is going to be the #1 thing for me, because we do try to push raid ranks. I am in a guild that's trying to push that. We did achieve Hall of Fame last time around, so when I'm picking a healer, there is a lot of kind of considerations to be made, because what are the other healers in my group? We have 3 other healers right now in the current healing roster. We have a Holy Paladin, we have a Priest, and then we have almost like a flex healer that's gonna pick depending on what's strong as well. And then we have me. So a lot of the times my main choice is going to depend on multiple different things. It's going to depend on how powerful the class is, and sometimes the power of the class might actually overtake the enjoyment of the spec for me, which has been the case previously. I played Holy Paladin Season 3. Holy Paladin was not the most overpowered healer in Season 3 in terms of Dragonflight, because it received so many nerfs, but I played Holy Paladin in Season 3 for raiding because the guild wanted me to play. No one else wanted to play Holy Paladin, and Holy Paladin was still a solid choice in Mythic raiding. Our guild achieved Hall of Fame, but I could not care at all about that achievement because I was playing a spec that I did not enjoy fully. And what I learned over time is that picking a healer that you enjoy is going to be the most important aspect, because previously I would actually tell my guild, hey, which healer do you want me to play? Which healer would bring the most utility or would make the most sense in order for the guild to push ranks? And that kind of mentality is it come to bite me in the ass previously, because I played healers that I didn't enjoy, and even though they were strong, I would just not want to log in. I would not want to go to the raid nights because I would be playing something that I don't fully enjoy, and that kind of really deteriorated my love of the game, and I kind of wanted to almost quit the game. So my main picking, or my parameters for main picking, are going to be a lot different, or a little bit different this time around. And I know a lot of people want to know what I'm going to be maining, and that is going to be, I don't think it's a big surprise, but Restoration Shaman. I kind of knew about my main choice already like a month ago or something along those lines. I just had to talk with the guild a little bit. Ever since they reworked Resto Shaman in the War Within beta, I just needed a reason for Resto Shaman to be brought into Mythic raiding, or possibly be useful in Mythic raiding. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it here, because every time I do these main videos, there's quite a few people that get really upset about how often I jump mains. Don't get me wrong, power of a class is going to be important, but if I have multiple healers that are relatively powerful, I'll pick the healer that I enjoy the most, that would give me the biggest longevity in terms of enjoying the actual game. And Resto Shaman ticks a lot of those boxes, and considering that I have a long history with Resto Shaman, it honestly was a no-brainer. Now, the more the beta has progressed, the more I got to play Restoration Shaman. I got to experience different builds, I got to try out Totemic, I got to try out Fireseer. I played Resto Shaman quite a lot because I really wanted to decide whether this is going to be something that I'm going to enjoy. And on paper right now, Resto Shaman is very strong. I love the fact that Resto Shaman is looking to be like a very good healer, both in raids, both in Mythic Plus content, depending if Blizzard is gonna do some tuning, but Resto Shaman is pumping. And if you're someone who's looking to do just Mythic Plus content in pug situations, Resto Shaman is absolutely unbelievable pug healer. As an example, over the last couple of days, I've been trying out or testing Devour Affix. Devour Affix, for the people who don't know, is basically Afflicted 2.0, but instead of getting these two kind of mobs that spawn, you're getting a debuffs on every single party member, and you need to dispel it or heal them up. And of course, as a shaman, you have Poison Cleansing Totem, and Poison Cleansing Totem is absolutely insane, and it completely deletes this affix. Now, if you have an organized group where everyone's dispelling or speaking into dispel and the class is able to dispel, this affix is really not a big an issue. But based on my testing, because no one really knows what Devour is, or at least a lot of other players don't know about Devour, they're not really dispelling themselves, they're running out of range. And honestly, this was more painful than I initially anticipated, depending on which healing spec you're playing. And this is kind of like a testament to Resto Shaman. I feel that if you have an organized group where everyone knows when to interrupt, when to use defensives, Resto Shaman utility is pretty great. It might not be the most groundbreaking thing ever because everyone knows how to play, but if you join a pug group where no one knows what's going on, Resto Shaman is absolutely unbelievable in terms of the utility you provide, because you can really carry keys depending on what the affixes you're doing. Again, you have to remember, if you're doing keys 12 and up, you don't really have to deal with these kiss and curse affixes, and the gameplay changes a little bit for the whole group. But as a shaman, you can have a knock-up, knockback depending on how you spec into Thunderstorm. You have, or you can dispel curses, and you have Poison Cleansing Totem, which is an absolute MVP when it comes to Devour Affix. I'm not sure if Devour Affix is going to make it live the way that it is, because it just feels quite painful. You have AoE stun, you have ways of improving HP increases. For example, you can pick up Ancestral Vigor easier. You can have Downpour, which also has HP increases attached to it, which is quite important because, again, I talked about the fact that I wanted any reason for Resto Shaman, or more reasons for Resto Shaman to be brought in raid. Again, we're pushing ranks as a guild. I have to look at other players, what they're playing, and I said to them, hey, Resto Shaman has a bunch of utility. You have your raid buff, you have ways of increasing HP, you have APT totem depending on which mythic bosses you're doing. Again, APT is situational, but it can be situationally strong as well. You have Wind Rush and all of these little things that you can provide, and I think Resto Shaman is gonna make a good pick for raid. And my guild agreed, and they said, hey, MadSkillz, let's go and play your Resto Shaman. There's so many good things about playing Resto Shaman. Honestly, you have so much utility. I don't want to cover every single aspect, but I do want to mention, for example, if I'm doing Mr. Tier side, having Tremor Totem for the first boss, having a ranged interrupt for the first boss, and then for the second boss, having a Root Totem to deal with ads. It just feels like you're kind of like you're the puppet master and you're controlling everyone and making everyone's lives easier. I think Resto Shaman's mobility is very decent. You have Ghost Wolf, you can pick up Gust of Wind easier. You have Speed Totem, again Wind Rush Totem, I like to refer to as Speed Totem, but your movement is pretty decent, your utility is excellent. Your defensives, you have Astral Shift, you have Stone Bulwark Totem, which is a new defensive that you can pick up. It's at the bottom of the class tree. And you can also have Earth Elemental. Depending on how many points you're going to invest into Earth Elemental is going to increase your HP. And then you can have a talent that also, while your Earth Elemental is active, you are taking reduced damage. On top of that, you can also have talents like Spirit Wolf, which can be awkward to min-max if you're not sure about the damage patterns. But if you know, or if you can preemptively make use of Spirit Wolf, it can be an additional defensive. Also, while playing Mythic Plus, I really enjoyed how the spot healing felt for Resto Shaman, honestly, because I've been playing Master of Elements, which means that it kind of gives me like an incentive to be casting Lava Bursts in the downtime, and those Lava Bursts are going to give me a stacking buff that can stack up twice. That's going to increase my next healing of Healing Surge. And if I have both stacks, that's going to increase Healing Surge healing by 60%, and then on top of that, I might have Tidal Waves. And also Tidal Waves, there's a tier set that interacts with Tidal Waves really nicely. And then maybe someone is low HP and then my master is going to do additional work, and then casting that Healing Surge that is empowered by so many different things. It honestly feels almost illegal in the amount of spot healing or single target healing you can do depending on situation, depending on what you have. And it just feels simplistic to play at its base, or the core rotation of Resto Shaman is not overly convoluted. I think the rotation is not that bad. It really depends on whether you're going to be playing Cloudburst Totem or Healing Stream Totem. It really depends which one of those is going to be stronger or more optimal. Again, time will tell because the tuning is still ongoing. But for example, I've been playing Totemic with, again, Lively Totems. I've been playing Totemic with Healing Stream Totem. And that kind of build is very, very simplistic. It's very new player friendly because a lot of your chain heals are going to be cast by certain totems. And those chain heals are going to feel strong depending on which talent build you're running. If you're someone who's absolutely new to World of Warcraft and looking to play a healer for the first time, I think Totemic Resto Shaman is going to be a very solid choice. But honestly, and I made rankings about the hero talents that I really enjoy, and Farseer has grown on me so much to an extent that I probably almost prefer Farseer over Totemic. And this is based on like a lot of the Mythic Plus dungeons that I've been doing. I'm really starting to enjoy the Ancestors gameplay that you have with Farseer. Again, you can proc Ancestors in multiple different ways. It's kind of a little bit lazy in terms of how they implemented it, because it's basically Holy Priest Divine Image. So if your Ancestors are there or they proc, they're going to try and cast similar spells that you have casted. But for example, if you're casting something like Healing Stream Totem or Cloudburst Totem, while Ancestors are there, they're going to cast Chain Heal. If you cast Healing Rain and Downpour while Ancestors are there, they're also going to try and cast Chain Heal. So there is a little bit of this min-maxy gameplay that you can have with Ancestors, and I think there might be some interesting talent builds that emerge, and I really been enjoying both of the hero builds for Resto Shaman. So not only Resto Shaman is doing really well right now, I think it's looking to be like a solid raid healer. I think it brings a decent amount of utility in raid, and if nothing changes, I think Resto Shaman will be used in mythic raiding guilds. I think it will be a good choice. Again, if nothing changes, we'll have to see how the heroic week is going to go. I think Resto Shaman is a great mythic plus healer. I think for Pugs, it is again, I don't want to go overboard, but it is the best Pug healer because the amount of utility to bring to the party is almost unmatched. You have a good dispel profile in terms of curse and poison dispel. If Devour affix is still there, Poison Cleansing Totem is absolutely overpowered, absolutely insane. Your mobility is very decent, especially considering the fact that you can pick up Gust of Wind easier. On top of that, in terms of defensives, you're getting Stone Bulwark Totem. What is not to like about this spec right now? On top of that, you have to remember some of the emphasis that's being brought back to Resto Shaman cooldowns. Look at Ascendance. You have talents now to reduce the cooldown of Ascendance to 2 minutes, which is also great. You have Spouting Spirits to make Spirit Link Totem feel a bit more impactful. And we talked about the fact that with some of the utility items, you have answers to a lot of different situations. But I also should say that because of your cooldowns, you can also respond to a lot of different kind of dangerous moments. And it just makes Resto Shaman a really versatile healer in my opinion. So this kind of brings me to the disadvantage of Resto Shaman, and I kind of have to be a little bit nitpicky here because I actually think Resto Shaman is in a great position right now, and I am really looking forward to playing Resto Shaman. I'm actually really excited because I enjoy this spec. For a lot of people who started watching my videos, they might remember my Resto Shaman in Shadowlands because I mained that healer for such a long time, and I'm looking back to go back to some of the roots of Resto Shaman because I'm just looking for any reason to play Resto Shaman because I like the gameplay. I think it's relatively strong right now, but again, if you're someone who's absolutely new to World of Warcraft or new to the class, you're probably going to be put off by the amount of keybinds you have. Again, I talked about suffering from success. Depending on which dungeons you're doing or different situations, you can have a lot of keybinds. But like I said it multiple times, I think it is a small price to pay for the amount of utility you have. You just have to be smart about keybinds, your help and harm macros. If you have a bit of help in terms of setting up your UI, setting up your keybinds, you can really min-max this class and you can really see the potential that it can bring. I think it might take some people a little while to get used to that Resto Shaman gameplay. It can feel a little bit slow at times, and I think if you're coming from certain other healers, going to Resto Shaman might be a bit of a change. As the Resto Shaman, you also don't have a dedicated tank external to use, but you can use Earth Shield with talents like Earth and Harmony to provide consistent damage reduction, and you can use Spirit Link to save your tank's life depending on the situation. Based on my Mythic Plus testing, I did have more mana issues with Totemic, but it wasn't the end of the world, and if it does become an issue in hierarchies, I can just swap around and try and play Farseer, which again just gives you more variety. Now in terms of some of the other healers that I'm going to be playing, keep in mind the level every single healer. I try to gear them up and try and keep playing every single healers for videos and things like that. And the cat here, he needed pets, so it's gonna be here in the rest of the video, or at least until he gets bored. But my other choice for healer is probably going to be either Preservation Evoker or Mistweaver Monk. Now Preservation Evoker is something that I enjoyed immensely throughout the beta. It's actually funny because a lot of people were saying that Preservation is not doing all that well, it's not going to be that good, but the numbers are just so strong, and only very recently people are really kind of discovering the true power of Preservation Evoker. So I like the fact that Preservation Evoker is pumping in terms of HPS, it's pumping in terms of damage. I think the fact that Preservation Evoker has these range limitations, you should get something, or you should be rewarded for playing a healer like that in terms of some of the numbers. I think Preservation Evoker is actually relatively hard to play because in order to min-max the combos that you can have, Stasis is actually, again, a very versatile ability. Echo is extremely versatile. You can have combos with Lifebind and Emerald Communion. There is a lot of ways to min-max Preservation Evoker that requires a relatively preemptive type of gameplay. You need to anticipate damage, you need to know when things are going to go bad or when the party is going to take a lot of or require a lot of healing, and I think it's really interesting. Playing around the range is absolutely painful depending on the situation you're going to be facing, but most of the time you might not even notice it. I had a blast with Preservation Evoker, but I also think it's going to live and die based on tuning, and I'm very scared about the first heroic week. The first heroic week, Blizzard is going to get a ton of data from a lot of players. There's going to be healing charts, there's going to be DPS charts, and at the end of the first heroic week, Blizzard is going to, or historically, they issue balancing. And I'm scared that Blizzard is going to, I'm scared that there's going to be nerfs to some of the healers. And again, I talked about the fact that preservation lives and dies on tuning, and Blizzard is mainly going to be looking at raid. They're not going to be tuning Mythic Plus on the first heroic week or the first opening of expansion, because they're looking at race to world first and things like that. So I'm a little bit scared about the future of preservation evoker, but I'm hopeful that Blizzard is going to acknowledge the fact that as an evoker you need to play around the range, and you should be rewarded for that. So my main healers right now is by far Restoration Shaman, my main healer. I'm going to be pushing Mythic Plus and I'm going to be pushing raids with this healer. In terms of other healers, and again I mentioned Preservation Evoker, that is going to be my split run healer, because you have to remember, if you're in a mythic raiding guild, especially the way that the expansion is laid out, the first heroic week, having split runs in order to gear up most of your raid is going to be very, very important. So most likely going to be bringing Preservation Evoker for those raids as a split run character. And the reason I mentioned Mistweaver Monk, because honestly, if I look back at all my time in terms of testing beta, in terms of testing Mythic Plus, Mistweaver Monk with that melee healing through damage, Jadefire Stomp, and things like Rising Mist, Ancient Teachings, Red Crane, all of those things, I've had a blast. Really sad about the fact that Monk is always something that I really enjoy, but it just doesn't make the cut in terms of my main character. I've always had a good time with Mistweaver Monk, and I think Mistweaver is right now almost considered like an underdog, and I genuinely think Mistweaver is, it's really fun. I think it does good numbers, and honestly, it might replace my Preservation Evoker in the future. It might climb a little bit higher. To summarize the whole video, I'm really happy about my main choice because I enjoy my Restoration Shaman. I enjoy the gameplay. I wanted to go back to Resto Shaman for a really long time. I was just looking for any reason for Resto Shaman to be brought into raids so I could tell my guild, hey, I want to play Resto Shaman. And honestly, Shaman is in such a good position right now, numerically, in terms of utility, in terms of, I mentioned a bunch of things. I think Shaman is a great choice, and I think my little cat might also agree as well. Guys, let me know how you feel about your healer main. Let me know which healer you're maining and the reasons why. Are you someone who's pushing high-end mythic raiding, or someone who's pushing high-end mythic plus, or someone who's just looking to have fun because you're doing more casual content? The biggest advice I can give you, do not play a healer that you don't enjoy, because believe me, based on my experiences, you're just gonna hate the game, and you're gonna hate the fact that you're paying to play a game that you don't enjoy because you picked a class that you don't like. Do what my cat does and play Feral Druid. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.